All right. Damn it. Okay. Alright, hey everybody. Sorry for the late stream time start. But yeah, I was trying to get everything set up. I've got sort of a new... Well, I'm trying out a new camera setup that doesn't wobble as much, which I think is good, because now it's not attached to the desk. So now when I wobble the desk, the camera doesn't move. But it's still annoying in and of itself to set up. So, yeah, the picture is crooked right now, and I think that if I try to fix it... Let me try really quickly. But I think it'll be just too much trouble. And we'll, moving forward, try to get a better grip on this, but yeah. Alright, yeah, so just more setup problems. We are using the new background music that was created by Phenomenist. So let me know if that is like either... I think I turned it down a bit too much actually. But let me know how the levels are on that, and yeah, I don't know. But yes, this also incorporates, a lot of it is, the music is just custom made for the stream, but it also includes parts of soundtracks of some of the other videos that have been uploaded to the Oregon archives. So you might hear some parts that might sound familiar if you watch my videos over and over again for some reason. But yeah. Alright, so I guess that is... we might as well get started because we're already a little... Alright, so... As you might remember if you were watching the previous stream, we were in the middle... We went through the infested section, and then we went through the first part of the sentient section, actually most of it, I think. And so we looked at some of like the cool sentient designs and stuff like that. And now what's left in this section are... let me try really quickly to fix like a cabling issue. But what's left in this section is... hold on. I gotta disconnect my mic real quick. Sorry about that. I didn't want to disconnect my mic like that, but the cable for it was just like in my way. Alright, so as I was saying, we finished up with we went through part of the sentient section, and then so now all that's left are these big and we finished at this page here. So now all that's left are nice big portraits like this. So we'll just flip through those, and then we'll go on to the next section, which I actually forgot what it was. Bringing up the table of contents. Oh, Cetus. Great. I'm super thrilled. Alright, so Sentience, and then Cetus and the Austrans and the Plains of Eidolon. So how's that? That sounds super interesting to me. So, hello Ninja, hello Sith, hello Ren Sensei. Is anyone else experiencing cutting out? I apologize if it is cutting out. Is it the video or the audio or both? I apologize for that. I apologize if it's cutting out. That might be my internet, unfortunately. Hopefully it doesn't cause too much of an issue and gets resolved. Alright. So, is that Murex parts? So yeah, these are here, and parts on this page are things that you would see in a Murex, yes. As I said, this is the sentient section, so, you know, these things, we covered this page on the last stream. Here, down here, are like the Eidolon flowers that show up on the plains at the end of the Old War. The New War. And then these are little, like, furniture, or like just some sort of fixtures that appear, and then this is some sort of like altar type thing that also shows up in the Murex. Both the audio and the visual. That's, alright. Cedar's part might tell us a bit about the upcoming update. Yes, that's right. If any of you saw the picture that they're using for the new update, it does look like it has a shot of Cetus like in the background. So I think there will be some. I think the next update, which is Kome and the 5 Fates, I think it might have something to do with Cetus, and so there's some interesting things to look forward to there, I think. I hope I'm not too late. Hey, Afree. Yeah. Yeah, so we're excited to go through this. All right, let's go ahead and get started, and we're starting on this page because, like I said, we talked about this left page already. So this is one of the portal bridges inside sentient ships, inside Murex, and also inside Pergasa. There's a scene in the New War where you. There's a mission in the New War where you're inside Pergasa and you go through a couple of these, and they actually, in the quest, they use them in an interesting way for transitions into cutscenes and stuff like that. So I actually really liked the way that these were used in the New War quest. But of course, you can find these on any Murex in a Railjack mission, and these are like bridge structures that they are like disassembled, and as you approach them, they assemble themselves into this tunnel thing, and then you go near it and you get like sucked through it to a distant part of the ship, which I think is really cool. Fates. I did say Fates, but maybe it didn't come out right. Yeah, Kume and the 5 Fates. Or maybe I meant to say Fates and it came out as dates somehow. But yeah, it's Kome and the 5 Fates. Oh, no, you... Okay. I'm like reading one chat message at a time. Probably something to do with the quills. Yeah, I hope so. 10 out of 10 would make a theme park out of the portals. Yeah, the portals seem super fun. And interestingly, by the way, here's a harrow for scale. I'm pretty sure that's a harrow. And that's very interesting because usually they use like a generic Excalibur or a Grineer Soldier, but there's like harrow for scale. It's cool. But yeah, the portals are cool. I will admit to at least one time having just like boom boom like going back and forth to just because it's pretty funny. Why not let us make our own in the dojo? I don't think the dojo rooms are big enough. The cutting out is getting worse. I'm sorry for that. Alright, we got a few more nice shots. Oh, interesting. So, I feel like these are more recognizable. These are So these are all sentient themed pictures. Presumably these are the insides of sentient ships. This one is interesting. There's like a staircase here, but you've got these like mechanical structures, like steel girders almost, with some like etchings on them, which is cool. This is also these are very interesting. These don't really resemble what we see in missions. And here's a conculist for scale here. This also looks pretty interesting. I mean, I'm assuming these are all supposed to be like internal spaces, except this might be a big space battle. I think this might be a Lisette, although it's a little hard to tell. This might be inside of a Murex. You know, they do have these big inside parts, but I think, especially based on the color scheme, and there's some rocks here. I think this is like outer space. I think this is some sort of big space battle. It's hard to make out here though. This is a really nice image though. Bigger dojo. Here's a nice sort of like interior room, like a courtyard type thing. This is also like an outer space thing. Maybe these are supposed to be Tau. I wonder if these are like concept images for Tau. Because this is like outer space, but it's like a weird... Yeah, it's like a bunch of asteroids or planets or like, you know, bodies, and then some of them have these pillars of light, and I'm assuming this is supposed to be the star. An interesting thing, and I don't know if DE has plans for Tau I think, you know, if Warframe lasts long enough, of course we'll get there. But it doesn't seem from what they've said that I'm gonna turn down the background music a little bit. I might just have to take it out of my ears because that's a little distracting. Based on... Sorry, I got distracted. Based on what they've said, I don't think that they have plans right now to go to Tau, but I wonder if they have some concept art for it. But one of the things that's interesting about Tau from the Tau system from a real life point of view is, because we do know a lot about it. It's one of the closest solar systems, star systems to Earth, and one of the interesting things about it is that it has a populated accretion disk. It's got like debris and like, you know, little asteroids and stuff like that. There's a bunch more little stuff floating around Tau than there is here. You know, in our solar system, we have like certain bands or belts of asteroids where they mostly hang out, and a lot of the space in between is just like empty, and there's not a whole bunch going on. But in Tau, it's apparently got like a pretty dense or like present like accretion debris disk around it, and so that means like the planets there would have like a lot more asteroid impacts, just ongoing, because there's more stuff flowing around in there. It's an interesting thing to note about Tau, and I wonder if, you know, DE knows this and has incorporated this or would incorporate this if they ever went to Tau. You know, DE's not always... They don't care too much about like the like scientific or astronomic details, which is fine. You know, that's, you know, it's a video game and whatever. And they have an easy out by just saying like, oh, Orokin technology, because like, why is Venus cold? And they eventually had to explain why Venus is cold, and they just went, oh, the Orokin made it that way, and it like overdid it, and so that's why it's cold. So, you know, whatever Tau ends up looking like, they can just be like, oh, the sentients made it that way. They've had millions, or not millions, they've had thousands of years. Millennia is the word I mix up there. They've had thousands of years to do, like, whatever the hell they want. So, you know, and then in the Mag Prime Codex entry, they say that Tau is blue, which it's not in real life. And then you get a glimpse of it in, like, the 2018 Sacrifice trailer, which is not super canon. And it's not blue there either. So, what exactly Tau looks like in Warframe, hard to say. But no matter what it is, they can just explain it away. And that's the beauty of the world that they've created. Is there's basically an answer for everything, except for interstellar communication. But that's a rabbit hole I'm not going to go down. Tau is probably after the Void arc. Maybe, I don't know, honestly. I think after... I mean, yeah, they've got the Void arc, the Man of the Wall arc, whatever they're doing now. They've still got to wrap up stuff with Narmer. That's just still out there. I feel like they could tie it up easy. They don't need to make a whole arc out of it. They could just do, like, one mainline update, or, like, you know, headline of the year update to be, like, to finish off Narmer. Maybe. If they wanted to, they could certainly make a big arc out of it, but I don't think they would. I don't think it's the next arc, you know? Because we had, like, Sentient arc, and then Void arc, and then back to Sentience. I don't think so. So, if they do make a whole arc out of Narmer, it'll be a while, and I hope that they revisit it before that, so, you know. Exoplanets and whatnot. The number of exoplanets. Yeah, okay, yeah, so... I do like the idea of super Earths. We're getting we're not going through this nearly as fast as I thought we would. So I'll just flip to the next page while we talk. So Tau has these super Earth planets, which I always thought was interesting because Earth is, in our solar system, Earth is the largest terrestrial planet. You know, all the planets that are bigger than Earth they don't have solid surfaces. They're gas or ice giants. So I like the idea of a super Earth, which is like a planet that's bigger, but it's still got a surface. It's still a rocky planet. And Tau has, Sith says 4, and I think that's right. I think I've looked this up every now and then, and you know, you only get limited information from something like Tau that's so far away. So I think what they do is they try to observe things passing in front of the star, and then they can, like, make some calculations based on that. But based on what we know, it would be nice to, like, I would love to have them send a satellite out there, or like a probe. But you know, you think of the time it would take to get there, and then just to the time to relay messages back. I mean, we sent the Voyager probes out in the 60s, maybe? I don't know, decades ago, and they've, like, kind of left the solar system by now. So, you know, it would be cool to get some info back from Tau in real life, but that's, like, just not happening in our lifetimes, I think. But yeah, so there's, like, a number of planets around Tau. Some of them are super Earths, and that's why it's, like, one of the that's why it's one of, like, the candidates in science fiction for, like, extrasolar colonization. And I think, like, one or two of them they said that is, like, likely to be in the habitable zone of the star. So, yeah. I don't think they're going to finish Narmer, since it seemed to mostly be a setup for the Veilbreaker stuff and Archon hunts. Yeah, well, they've talked about... I think they've made comments about sort of revisiting the Narmer thing, because they, you know, if you listen to the Archon hunt, like, dialogue, there's like the hints of a story there. It would take a long time. Well, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It would take a long time to reach Tau. Like, it can't happen, I think, in our lifetimes with the technology that we have. which is just unfortunate. I mean, honestly, like, sending a probe there would not be worth it. You would, like, basically have to send people, because sending something there, waiting for a signal to come back, and then making and being like, oh, we should send people there, that it makes whatever that expedition is twice as long. If you're gonna colonize Tau, just send the people there. You can't like, that's what I think. The Voyagers haven't even left the heliosphere. I feel like I looked this up like a month ago, because there was like some threshold reached. They crossed something. Like, if you want to, the answer to like the edge, what's the edge of the solar system is, there's like multiple types of answers for it. I think what the Voyager probes did is they crossed the termination shock, which is when like the density of the interstellar medium changes and you get like more particles coming from other stars than from the sun. And so in a sense that is like the boundary of the solar system, because that's like the particles that are in outer space. It's where you cross the point where it stops being dominated by particles from the sun. But there are still things that, like the Oort cloud and other stuff that continue to orbit the sun, that are far, far out past that line. So it's true that there are things that orbit the sun that Voyager is not even close to yet. I think it's like a tenth of the distance there or something like that. Or, I could be completely wrong on like the hard numbers. But the overall is that I think by some definitions the Voyagers have like left the solar system, but by some definitions they haven't. So Narmer's gonna have to wait until after Wally's defeated. I mean, story-wise, yeah, but, from a... it's just been a long time since Veilbreaker. Like, in real-life terms. When did that come out? In, 2021? No, 2022. Because New War was the end of 21, so Veilbreaker was, like, summer of 22, and... like that, so there's been 2 years of Pazul doing nothing. It just feels weird. Like how Wally waited until Ballas was dead. Wally didn't, like, wait. I mean, he waited, but he wasn't like, oh, Ballas is dead, now I'm gonna start doing stuff. It was because Ballas opened a portal, like, right before he died. The portal thing was significant. It says that in the operator report. So... that's why, like, Whispers in 1999 happens after the New War, is because of the portal that Ballas opened during the New War, at the very end. So, at least in that sense, they have reasons for, like, why Wally wasn't doing much until now, and now it's like, oh, big problem. Damn, it's been like 3 years since New War. I know, it has been, right? That's wild. Alright. So we gotta get going. This is a nice, gorgeous shot here of just some Murex, some ship parts. It looks like this stuff almost like Corpus. But it's not, it's sentient. But it does. This is interesting, because it, like, incorporates, like, asteroids here. These look like rocks. You know what? I think this might be a concept of Pregasa or a different ship rebuilding itself, because remember that this red energy is, like the blueprint that the ship uses to, as far as the concept... Oh. Whoops. Huh. I am getting word that the stream has ended. let me, if anyone is listening, which I doubt, I'm just going to restart this. Now it says excellent. It says the quality is excellent. I don't know what to think. Hold on 1 second. I'm getting conflicting reports about the health of the stream, which is unfortunate. Okay. Alright, so I think we're back. Getting some conflicting reports, which is, but okay. Alright, well, we're gonna keep going, and yeah. I would really love to get better internet, and it's honestly not like an issue of money. It's like the number of internet service providers that will actually service this location. I can't remember if I've actually talked about this on stream or not, but like I think I've said this before. But yeah, no, it's only like one crappy internet provider will even deign to give us service, and and their service is terrible. And yeah, so I think we're on the wait list to get like a fiber connection or something out here, but yeah, there's like not much I can honestly do to get better internet, which is really sucks. So yeah. I apologize for that. Although I will say, I think Sith, it is probably on my end, but I feel like you give me like the worst news. So I feel like maybe your internet is also like cutting out more so, but I mean, I don't know. It is probably on my end. So what I was saying before was that this red energy is like the grid or the blueprint that sentients use to rebuild themselves, and we saw this earlier with some of like when we were earlier in this section last week. The big sentient ships, Pregasa and the Murex, they rebuild themselves from space detritus. And so they use these red energy like outlines, and then they build along them. And so the fact that this is like it's building along these lines and then it's using these asteroids, it's very clear, especially up here and I think over here, that it's just incorporating the asteroids into it. So this is an earlier version because of, now in game when you see Murex, they don't look like they're made out of like asteroids, but they are. And so clearly the process got more refined. But I think the original draft is that like they just take the asteroids and build themselves with it. And now what they do is they break them down. I think it's implied that they break them down into their constituent parts and they rebuild them. So what you see on the Murex ships doesn't look like whatever it came from. It's like they made new matter, but they're repurposing like stuff they find in space, other ships, asteroids or whatever. They just gather it all and rebuild themselves. The material from crafting Narmer stuff. Narmer isoplast, I think, is a memory or an information thing. I don't think it's an actual, like, construction material. I could be wrong, though. Based on the description, I think the description of Narmer isoplast calls it, like, an information thing, though. And it says, like, the quills are interested in it, and I don't think that would be true if it wasn't data related somehow, you know? If it was like sentient concrete, why would the quills care about that? Alright, so down here we've got you know what, this let's see. White should be thicker than black parts built on top of black. Whoa. Oh my god. It says this. It says it in really, really, really fine print. I need a fucking magnifying glass. No joke, I meant to go get a magnifying glass for this because some of these notes are so hard to read. Alright. Phase 1. Nanites create energy wireframe / blueprint. Phase 2. Wireframe thickens. She says tickens, but that's not right. Wireframe thickens to veiny tendrils. It's actually cut off. Damn it. There's another line of text underneath it, and it's cut off halfway, so you can only see like the top part of the letters. So I can't even read this. That's very frustrating. If I was able to see it better, I might be able to guess what it says. Phase 3: veins thicken and get darker to define organic structure is I think what the second line says. Phase 4. As the pattern gets more dense, the surface fades into a harder shell. Okay, so I spent a lot of time basically guessing and talking about this, and it does say it, it's just very hard to see. So the nanites, this I believe is the first time we've ever heard talk of sentient nanites. They're not hard to imagine, but and we do hear about nanites when it comes to the infested. But this is the first time I think we're hearing about sentient nanites, which is interesting. And it says the nanites create energy wireframe blueprint. So yeah, as I was saying, I was like sort of gleaning this from the concept art from earlier, from last week. If I can just really quickly find something, because we saw this like red. Here we go. This is a page that we saw last week. This is Pregasa with the wireframe blueprint. So the red is a blueprint, like I said, and it's created by nanites, which is very interesting. And then basically over time, it thickens and gets harder, and they get like veins, which, you know, veins in the body, they provide nutrients and to like the tissue. So this is probably providing like building materials, and making sure that the reconstruction can proceed efficiently. So that's very cool. This is like my favorite part of the art book, is like the notes that they include. So yeah, you have they call it a wireframe. As the pattern gets more dense, the surface fades into a harder shell. So you see the shell. It says the surface just sort of fades on there, which is interesting. It doesn't talk about like building in like an active sense. Regrowth example, kit example. I think these are just like examples of things that can be on the outside. This is described as Marco's big pillar. Remember that Marco Hasman is the one of the lead concept artists for Warframe. believe, he's still working on Warframe because he did a bunch of the Andrade stuff for the labs. So he still does. He's one of the main concept artists. He was actually at TennoCon this year, and I forgot what title they used for him. Because I don't think he's like the art director. I think that's Rose. No, man, I don't even remember. Because some of them went to Soulframe, some of them didn't, and as they've said, they all work on both games anyway. So less pillar and brighter when finished. So anyway, what you see here is this is like a pillar as an example of something that is being reconstructed by the sentients, and it literally goes from start to finish here as you go along. So it starts off as this energy wireframe and gets more and more finished, and when it's finished, it's like white and clean, which is not really how it ended up. I mean, sentient stuff doesn't super look like this a lot, so maybe that means that everything that we've seen is not finished, and maybe that means that they've changed their design, in the process. But this is super cool. This gives us a good overview of sentient regrowth as it applies to the ships. So that's very cool. Up here we've got just something. Some sort of like altar thing, a lot of the red energy. It looks like the wireframe stuff, but I don't know if that's what it is. I don't know if it's maybe rebuilding a pillar here, or if it's just shooting energy for some reason. This is good. I've seen this before. I have not seen this. So it looks like they've got Conculist that they're using for scale here. This is like a big doorway, and this is like a hallway, and this is like an arch type thing over it. But it also looks like an aerialist, the big flying guys, which we have seen last week. It's interesting. I wonder if that was intentional or not, if they made this look like a dude on purpose. Sorry for asking if it's not too much. Could you please take a photo of those notes about sentient nanites and share it later? Seems like nice information. Yes, I am actually planning to, when we finish the art book, yes, I will. I'll go and take some time and maybe try to get like a high quality scan or something, or at least just a photograph of those, because those are, I agree with you, those are interesting notes. What I want to do is, once we finish the art book, I'm gonna like take some time, go through it on my own, and like compile some thoughts, and then I'm gonna make a stream where I'm like, or maybe a series of streams if it. This has gone on. Can you believe I thought I was gonna get through this book in one stream? So this has gone on for a lot longer than I thought. So maybe this will too. But what I want to do is have a stream where I go through and I'm like, here are some really interesting, from like a lore perspective, because that is obviously the perspective that I have, and hopefully why you all are here. From a lore perspective, these are things that we have learned from the art book, or things that I thought were notable because they reinforced something. So I want to take some time and sort of do like almost like a summary, because we have these art streams where we can look at and admire the art, and I think I haven't actually looked at like Pupsker's stream where he goes through his video where he goes through the art book, but I'm sure it's a lot better than mine, just because of like the ad hoc way I've assembled my setup here with like my wobbly camera and stuff. So I'm sure if you want to like look at the art, I mean, I don't want to put my stream down too much, but the art is cool to look at, but I am interested in what we can learn about Warframe's lore and world and factions based on this. And so yeah, I want to have some time to talk about that and to sort of go over what we've seen in the book. And so that'll be at the end when we go through the whole book. We are I'm looking at like the spine of the book, and we're about halfway through it now. So, yeah. So yes. To answer your question, Avery, I do want to take a picture and probably type it out, and I'll get them back to Find Glass, see if I can puzzle out what exactly that concept, what that this caption says in detail. But yeah, that's very interesting information to have, and I will talk about that in the future. I promise you that. I'm still thinking on the nanites. I know, right? It's an interesting. I think now that we can always speculate about what sentients are like, but now that we have this they have nanites. Now that basically opens like a whole door, because I was like, what's the black goo? Because they have the black goo that makes sentience, and it's like, oh, those are nanites, probably. If you think about it, I think those are probably nanites of a sort, and that explains why they can make sentience. It's just that the nanites are common to the sentients, which begs the question of if the biofluid. Okay, so yeah, we're the biofluid. I'm assuming you're talking about the black goo. Just different ways of talking about it. But yeah, I think the black goo or the biofluid is nanites, and so that's you're like, oh wow, it's like it's very cool. It's very cool. All right, so here we've got sentient interior shot. This looks a lot more unfinished. It almost looks like natural, like rock formations here. It's very cool. Couple of conculus for scale, like inside here. Whoa. I'm just filling ahead. There's a lot of these. I wonder. I think we might be stuck in the middle of the Cetus section. I don't think we can finish this and finish Cetus. But we'll get to there when we get here. There's a decent amount of. The stream is still loading. I'm sorry about that. There's a decent amount of these like sentient, big photos. This one is amazing. So this is the inside of a Murex. You can tell we're inside looking out because of these like rib structures, which if you've ever seen a Murex, you know what that is. And then there's like so much stuff happening inside. And then you also see this distant light source, which now I'm wondering if the thing that we were looking at a couple of pages ago, if this shot here and maybe even this shot are inside of Murex. So you can maybe see the ribs here. And this, you have a distant light, which I said was maybe Tau or the sun or a star. I don't know why there's like a light inside the Murex, like in the distance. Is it like the opening on the other side? Do Murex have like an opening on the sides? But yeah, I don't think there's anything like distinct that you can see on the inside of the ship. I'm like leaving fingerprints on this. It's like easy to tell because this is like big, black, glossy, like dark. I don't want to leave my fingerprints on this. But yeah, there's like not a lot of distinct stuff. You just see like shapes, like ribs, like bones, protrusions, and like some platforms and some floating stuff. And then you got these spots of red, which might be like damage, like maybe there's like they're in a battle. And those are. This I think is a. It's hard to. I don't think you can see this at all. I think this is a galleon. I can see like the spiked, the oar-shaped torpedo tubes on this. I think this is a galleon, and it's like burning, and it's being captured and like eaten, digested, or something by the Murex. Hi, David Mendes. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, so like I said, not much detail that you can really glean except for like captured ships, and maybe that's what's happening up here too, which is interesting. But yeah, it's just a gorgeous shot from the inside of the Murex. And then what can we see on the outside? I think, yeah, I don't think there's anything going on outside. This is just an amazing shot. Here we've got. All right, so this is just like a hallway type thing. It looks like inside. So these are actually rooms that you can visit in a Murex, especially during like the Call prison break mission, which I used to do those weekly back when Archon shards were in them, just to get some more Archon shards. And now that they removed Archon shards from Chipper's shop, there's literally no reason, once you've got all the stuff, to do the Veilbreaker missions ever again. Which is a shame. People complained about them, and I get why they complained about them, to be frank. They've actually improved them a lot. I think a lot of people who maybe did a bunch of the Call missions and then just got annoyed and stopped might not have seen the improvements they made. Now they added a bunch more stock just like laying around the place, and they made it easier. They made Call move faster. They put special guns there that aren't in the game anywhere else, like the Gorvac or something like that. There's like a Grineer shotgun that doesn't exist anywhere else in the game that you can pick up. But yeah, they put some effort into making the Call missions not suck as much, and I think that they at least succeeded in making them not suck as much. But now there's no reason to do them. There's just no reason to do them, because once you get all the stuff, extra copy of Styanax for the helmet, you get all the Archon mods, the landing craft skin. There is anyway, which is just to say that I've seen these rooms a lot, because every third week, you'd have to go through the Murex and basically traverse the whole thing. And so this in one of like the rooms like towards the very end of the mission where you have to rescue 2 people, it's either going to be this room or it's going to be this room. It was like the one part that was random in terms of like the map. Because the maps on the Call tiles of the maps on the Call missions are basically fixed. It's the exact same thing every day. Every time it shows up. But for some reason, you get a choice. Not a choice. You get a random tile on the prison break mission where it could be this room with like the low ceiling and like it slopes down into the center where there's just a pillar here, or this room where it's open in the middle and there's like a stream of red energy, and every now and then you see like a Ropalolist show up, like in a blueprint form, not a real one, and which is interesting in and of itself. Finally able to catch your streams live. Just wanted to say thank you so much for showing off the art book. Your commentary is fantastic. Well, thank you. I'm glad that other people appreciate my commentary, because I do have a lot to say, it's very funny to me that and flattering that other people like listening to the things that I have to say. So, but yeah, so anyway, these are, like I said, long story short, these are 2 rooms that you can actually find in the Murex. And, yeah. Harrow for scale. I don't know what this is. It's like a for scale, but it looks like a Kill Rigger or something. It's a something for scale. But yeah, Harrow for scale. I don't know why they're using Harrow. And then this, let me just, yeah. So this, I've also seen this before, and it's like, what the heck is this? And there's a bunch of other art concepts for like the sentient tile set that is like this. There's just some weird big structure. The shape is roughly, and the texture looks familiar to like what we understand to be sentience. But as far as function is like, what is this? And then you just get these like curves of energy here. I mean, it looks very important, but like, what is it? And this picture actually specifically has got a ton of sentience, and I think some and at least two Tenno, and they're like shooting. There's like a battle going on here, which is interesting. But yeah, this is and this is huge because the Warframe is here, and there's a sentient here. There's another Warframe here. It's really hard to see, and it's shooting. There's tons of sentience in this photo, in this image. This is a thick page. All right. This is interesting. This is like almost like an altar type thing, and it extends up into the roof. There's a big hole cut out of the roof, which is that is you see that on sentient ships a lot of the times where there's like multiple levels and the floor is like a big hole cut out of it to show you the floor underneath. So this doesn't look... I don't recognize this specific thing, but this type of thing looks familiar. Battlist for scale. Same here. Now, here there's like a big pit in the floor, which is the same thing but reversed. You get these big open sort of cavities or something with the red energy. And this, see, what we've seen and what has been now made clear to us is that the red energy wireframe is used as a blueprint for rebuilding. But I don't think that's always the case. I think that sometimes it's just there, and it's serving some other purpose. And this is just complete speculation from me, of course. So I think I don't think this is like rebuilding. I think these are going to do something with that energy. Maybe like to me these look like faucets almost, like in a metaphorical sense. It feels like something is going to come out of these, either energy or maybe a liquid, but I think more in the sense of energy is going to like spill out and maybe like go into this hole or something. And this looks like a fence almost, like a grid or a prison. So I don't think this is like a lattice blueprint for rebuilding either. Oh, nice. This is a big exterior. So this is a big exterior shot of Pregasa. This is great. I feel like I've seen this image before. Oh, this is the end. Okay. What a great picture to end on. This is Pregasa, and you can see her sucking stuff in. It looks like things are being sort of disassembled or like disintegrated on their way into her mouth. Maybe from like just the force of the suction. You got... This is honestly hard to tell. It might be a Grineer ship. It might be a Corpus ship. I think this is Grineer. This is a Grineer Outrider. This is, I think, a Galleon. You can see the spikes. But this is a Corpus Obelisk. And then there's like also a bunch of asteroids and stuff. It's all getting sucked in. Pregasa consumes... she's also called the Devourer. And yeah, she's just consuming just stuff. It's hard to imagine, knowing, of course, that space is mostly empty space. It's hard to imagine how you could like have a Devourer. But Pregasa apparently seems very capable of finding stuff in space to suck up, even though most of what's in space is nothing. Nothing. I really wish we could run Void Relic missions in the Mirex tile set. That would be fun. That would be fun. Yeah. There's like, the closest thing is like there's Void Storms I wonder if those only void storms happen in the Grineer missions, right? I don't think they're just only in the Corpus Railjack missions. But yeah, I mean, you can do void storms, which like lets you open relics, but it's not the same. Especially because, in theory, you could just never leave your railjack and just wait for the boarding parties to come to you, and then get corrupted, and then have them. You do have to leave the ship in order to like do the mission objectives, but yeah. All right, so that is the sentient section. So now we are moving on to Cetus, and it is 8 o'clock my time. We are an hour into the stream, so let's see how far we can get with the Cetus stuff. This looks like a long section, so we'll try to get through it, and yeah. I guess you can also try devouring microparticulates and whatnot. I mean, yeah, there's... But even including all, like, the random particles and stuff, space is empty. And when we talk about particles in space, I'm pretty sure it means, like ions and, like, electrons and stuff, like subatomic stuff. Not even stuff that you could recognizably refer to as matter. Alright, so Cetus, Ostron Reclamation Colony, that is what it's called, and I'm pretty sure the only time you ever see this is when you first come to Cetus, like for the first time. There's an intro scene. There's actually one of these for all three of the hub areas, the landscape hubs. The first time you go to the town, it says the name of the town, and then it has like a subtitle that tells you kind of what the town is about, and then you never like really hear it again. And I'll get to them as we get to the other ones. But yeah, in the Cetus intro cutscene, it says Ostron Reclamation Colony, which is what they are. They recover Orokin artifacts and like lost technology and like goods and materials and stuff from the Unum. From the Unum is she gives them, the tower gives them this stuff from her, but the Ostrons are traders and merchants by nature, especially outside of Cetus. Cetus is like a whole different sort of ball game because they have the tower and there's like a whole symbiosis there, but the Ostrons are much bigger than Cetus, and they weren't always at Cetus either. They're historically like a spacefaring merchant class, and so they also deal in Orokin artifacts as part of this. And some of the Orokin villages in the Ghouls comic series is about it takes place in like an Ostron village, which is not Cetus but is probably close by, and they're like dealing in Orokin technology and stuff too. So yeah, the Ostrons, they do like to dig up and unearth lost Orokin stuff, and yeah, Ostron Reclamation Colony. This is a great landscape. I am pretty sure this art piece is by Dejan Ostojic, because I've seen this and I was like looking through this specific photo at one point. Alright, so the forward here is by Matt Tremblay, director of art, at the time of the publication of this book. The development of Cetus and the Plains of Eidolon marked a series of firsts for our team. That's true. We introduced a new faction, expanded beyond the traditional game lore, and created an interactive town space where players could engage with NPCs, obtain missions, trade, and receive story updates. It was also our first attempt at designing an open-world experience. This project presented artistic, creative, and technical challenges, but the results were rewarding and encouraged us to create more immersive experiences for the Warframe community. The development of the Ostron culture allowed us to expand the community of diverse inhabitants of the Origin system and explore their significance, inspired explore their significance. Inspired by Keith Thompson's work, our concept artists expanded upon initial ideas, shaping a world that became the stage for battles, quests, and significant events. Cetus and the Plains of Eidolon truly propelled Warframe into a new chapter for both the game and its dedicated fan base. Yeah, so if any of you were playing before the Plains of Eidolon, which released in 2017, and it really is, to me, I think, one of the big turning points in Warframe. You have like the second Dream was obviously, I think, one that a lot of people point to, but when the Plains of Eidolon was teased at TennoCon 2017, and then released later that year in October, it was a completely new chapter of the game. You had this like hub world full of like NPCs. It was like a brand new culture of people. It was it really was something. I mean, the forward, Matt Tremblay says it all, I guess. But just as someone who was playing at that time, it was so exciting from like a lore point of view, but also, it just made the game a lot more complicated, or like complex, and I mean that in a good way. And it gives a lot of like life to like the world. It was super cool. And then I think they sort of did like a copy and paste with Fortuna, and a lot of people didn't like that, or they maybe thought it was like, oh, this is just the same thing, we just have to do the same type of grind, which is I thought that it was a similar expansion of like lore, story, and world, which I thought was great. But as far as like the mechanics go, Fortuna was just like a copy and paste in terms of like the types of things you had to grind, with the added thing of the debt bonds, and so there was like a response to that, and I think DE was sort of like, oh, okay, we should maybe slow down on these, and then there was Deimos, which had its own development because of the pandemic. Deimos was actually supposed to release after the New War. That was the initial plan, but they couldn't work on the New War during the pandemic, so they had to release Deimos. So they tried to like pump the brakes after Fortuna, but people were like the community was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have like one of these every year. Every planet's gonna have an open world. It was very exciting. It was really cool, and I think it still is. Really excited that we're finally going back to see this potentially. I think that's I still remember the hype from that TennoCon. Yeah, that TennoCon had, and that was also, I think, the first one. They had some events, some Tenno, like they had like Tenno Live events in 2015 and 16 that showed off some stuff, but 2017 I think was the first real TennoCon. There might have been a TennoCon in 2016, but it was 2017. It was like, I think, the first time where they had like the convention center, and it started at like the big hype like sensation of TennoCon. To me, it's like the first real TennoCon is 2017, and it was just so exciting. Like you could like hear the crowd, go wild at like the story beats that were revealed. They didn't even reveal much story. They after that, the demos started to have like a gameplay component that that was a very carefully scripted, and they do a very good job of pulling it off every year. But in 2017, they didn't even do anything. They just walked around the town, and they like went outside and walked around and shot a few Grineer, and then there's like a cutscene that showed the Eidolon coming out of the lake, and then it ended. Like there wasn't like a complicated gameplay script that they had to do. Although they mentioned that there was like a path that they had to walk to make sure it didn't break. But yeah, the hype on TwinoCon 2017 was absolutely wild. And yes, Cetus was... The Plains of Eidolon was just a brand new chapter of Warframe, and I still think, as I said, it's one of like the big turning points for the game. So yeah. Alright, so this seems like an earlier concept because this is not what Cetus looks like. So this is the tower. It's like this big sketch. You've got these balloons coming down from the tower. Wait. This might be balloons, but these are actually what do you call them? Like a ski lift, like a cable car. This is cable cars. These are big, lines going up at an angle into the tower, and then you've got cars, suspended from it. There's two big lines, and there's like the big, station at the bottom. This structure here seems to have always been part of Cetus because it is there now. This round tent-looking structure. I mean, it's a building, not a tent. But with like the tower, like the pointy part in the middle. This is actually the part, by the way, you can see in the Kome and the Five Fates image, the promo image. That's the image that people are looking at and being like, oh my gosh, it's Cetus. It's literally this thing. But yeah, and there's also a bridge, so I guess, yeah, there's like a big bridge to go. Oh, no, this is the Orican Bridge, and it's broken. So here's the half coming from the tower, here's the half on the ground, and then it's broken in the middle. So, so this is interesting because it also, in this version, it's like surrounded by cliffs, like it's in like a crater almost, you can see. The town is like in a crater, and then there's like, the buildings are just sort of sketched into, they're just cylinders and cones and stuff like that. So you also see this weird shaped tent, and there's another one on the other side of the building, and this is also, I think, like there's two big weird shaped tents. They're, they've got this round shape that gets big in the middle. I think it comes across pretty easily. It's sketchy. It's just a sketch. But I think the outline of it comes across on the stream. But yes, you see... Hold up. Oh, sorry. You see that some elements of Cetus have always been there. These weird-shaped tents, this big building in the middle. I think this is a balloon. And then, of course, the Tower of the Unum has always been there. So... and then, like, the broken bridge, the land bridge. But this version of Cetus is in a crater. And they're using cable cars to get in, possibly in addition to the balloons. And I guess the cable cars evolved into the balloons that they use. This is a fascinating look at sort of like what I'm assuming is an early design for this town of Cetus. They should totally do more open world for each planet, or even just actual planet-specific tile sets. Some planets feel pretty samey at times currently. Yes, I mean, I would love that. Like I said, I would have loved if they kept going after Fortuna. I think the community didn't like I said, the community didn't like the grind, and they were like, ugh, it's just one more, syndicate to grind. Or two. Usually there's two. And Fortuna actually had three, because they also had the Vent Kids, which was even more annoying. So, but I would have loved it if there was like, okay, now there's a Mars one. There's so much interesting stuff to do on Mars. There's like that lost culture, which is presumably exterminated, but they could always be like, oh, there's a village here that has managed to survive. but like they've got this lost like civilization with like the sandstone dwellings. It would be a great open world. Uranus would be great. People don't like Sharkwing, obviously, but I love the Sea Labs tile set. There's so much. It's so interesting. There's so much to explore there. A Jupiter gas city open world would be. That would be very hard, and I don't know how. Like, I would design it, but I have such faith in DE that they could design it, and it would be amazing. So that would be cool. Like, I mean, honestly, every planet could have just a great open world. That would be great, but that's so much. It's a lot of resources. I mean, I get why they don't do it. And yeah, some of the planets do feel samey. Mercury and Saturn share a lot of like the Grineer asteroid stuff, which makes sense to me. Uranus and Pluto share the same Corpus Outpost thing. There's tons of examples. Sedna uses either the asteroid or the galleon or the shipyards from Ceres. So some planets do have like their own, or mostly their own tile set, and then there's like some of the older ones that are just still out there. And then I think every now and then Titan open world. Oh man, Titan open world would be great. Titan being like the largest moon of Saturn, which has its own very fascinating, in real life, as an extremely interesting. It is interesting. There's no word that comes after. It's like like Ninja's saying, it's got liquid methane lakes. It would be great, and yeah, massive Grineer training facilities. Saturn, the Saturn system is one of the Grineer's like main strategic like strong points. So yeah, Crater makes a lot of sense given the massive bomb Gara detonated. Interesting. I mean, yeah, I could see that. We don't have a lot of information on this bomb. It's a device the Unum created, and then the explosion is being described as like. Honestly, this seems from if you read the Gara legend, from like the fragments, the way they describe the Anko talks about the explosion. Honestly, I think this crater is small. It seemed like it was like it reshaped the landscape. It was like towering walls of dust and like dirt and it sounded like cataclysmic. And you look at the size of the sentient bones in the area, and you're like, oh, it would have had to have been to kill that. Like the Terralist and the other Eidolons that you fight on the plains are like so small compared to, you look at the bones that are like out at sea or in the distance, and you're like, holy shit. Like this thing, it almost looks like it was like the size of the tower of the Unum. So, honestly, Crater makes sense given this massive bomb that Gara detonated, yeah, but I think actually this crater is too small for that. Yeah. Alright, so, it is now 8:20, and we're still on the first page. You know what, we'll just end when we end. I'm not gonna stress about it. So... here we've got some sketches of Ostron tents. You got a variety of different shapes. Overall the same sort of like philosophy of like sort of rounded but asymmetrical shapes, and with like a leaning part on most of them, something that comes outwards. These are interesting shapes. When you think about like how a tent shape would traditionally develop, I feel like. It would either be like a regular, like a rounded shape that was like uniform, or you get like a stretched out tarp type thing tied between, a set of points. And this has like both, and I'm like, why would they do both? But it does make for a unique look. Literally the size of a mountain. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What if Garatot Lake was the crater? That like it could be. Maybe. I'm trying to picture that. I think Garatot Lake might be like roughly the same size as Cetus the town, right? Maybe? I don't know. But it's also like, I mean, this crater has like because it's a crater, it's got a very clearly defined outer edge. But the lake is the lake, but it's like in a depression. So the crater from the blast could be like huge and only like, because because the land slopes downwards at that point to get to the lake. And so like you could be saying that like the crater was actually like the entire middle half of the plains. And only the bottom part of it, the lake, is filled in with water. But yeah, and it's not really crater shaped, that area. But like I said, the land goes downwards, and then the bottom part of it is filled with water, and that's the lake. So yeah, I don't know. If there is a crater, I would probably, especially based on the name and the fact that the Eidolon Shrine is there, I would say that if there is a crater, it's probably likely to be the lake. So, it makes sense, Seth. What are these? These are jars or like jugs. Asymmetric details, so they point that out, and they do make a thing. I think they really value asymmetry in Warframe. I think the Corpus are like the only faction that is like, and the Sentients, but not even all the time with the Sentients. Most of the Sentients and the Corpus are like symmetrical, but Infested, they are like, hell no. They're like almost aggressively non-symmetrical. It's always like one half of the body gets infested, in the units, which we saw last week. And then the Grineer, because they have like the bulbous armor that just is stuck on wherever, and like some of the body parts fail and some of them don't, so they have like some cybernetics. The Grineer are also very asymmetrical, but it doesn't seem forced. It just looks like they're terrible and falling apart because they are. And so, yeah, DE just loves making non-symmetrical things. Even Warframes used to be... A lot of Warframes are symmetrical, but even from the start, Saren, I want to say Loki, but I don't remember what base Loki looks like, because I use his Knave skin, which is also very asymmetrical. But they use there's a lot of asymmetrical Warframes, and then there's a lot of symmetrical Warframes. So that one's something. But it does make things look unique. I think it's probably makes for like a better visual design. The perfectionist in me, that's not the right word, is like annoyed by the asymmetry, but yeah. Banshee has had that shoulder plate. Yeah, Banshee has like shit. I'm thinking of I think Banshee has like one shoulder that like extends outwards or something like that. I know in her deluxe skin that shoulder has like a hole, like a record, like a disc that just sits there on her shoulder, which I think is cool. But I think, yeah, even the base has something asymmetrical with that shoulder. Alright. Asymmetric design. Shape, language, intent. That's always what you want to establish with especially with concepts. Mix between Tenno and Grineer, like the Ostrons are Tenno with less elegance. Looks like a satchel, but have to be from a futuristic world. Limited use of classic fabric. That is very interesting. And it's true if you think about it. The Ostrons do kind of look like a mix between Tenno and Grineer. I do think a lot of the Ostron aesthetic is similar to the Grineer aesthetic. So it's cool that was part of their original like design command. Tenno with less elegance. So this is a satchel, but a futuristic world. And then it's also interesting that this had limited use of classic fabric. But they do use classic fabric. They have like the rugs. I mean, the tents are made out of stuff, but it seems like for like their everyday stuff, it says they want to limit the use of classic fabric. I mean, the satchel. Yeah, I mean they use a lot of like animal products, which I guess like leather is an animal product, but they use like fish stomachs and stuff like that, and shells. They use a lot of shells. So, yeah. Are we sure that the Unum isn't just a warframe that's being mistaken for some kind of god, especially considering we don't have a U named frame yet? It's interesting that you bring that up, that we don't have a U named frame yet. I think that, it's always been Rebecca's specific focus to hit every letter on the alphabet. Even before she was community director, she would like bring it up on the live streams and stuff like that, on like dev streams and prime time. She wants every letter filled. But the Unum comes from a time before Rebecca was really, I think, in the position to be making big decisions like that. Which is not to say that, she's has clearly always been a valued member of the team, and she had a lot of input into Revenant, and even before that, Titania. I think Titania was like her pet frame that she designed in many ways. But I don't think... what I'm saying is that I think the Unum has... I'm assuming they had an idea of what she is from the start when they introduced the Plains of Eidolon, and so I don't think that this is based around... I don't think it's a Warframe, because it's... I don't think it's a Warframe. I don't think they're trying to fill the U gap with the Unum. Although, it would be interesting if they ended up naming a Warframe after the Unum or something like that. In which case, it would also fill in the U gap. But yeah, U is, I'm pretty sure, like, it seems like Rebecca's making like a focused effort to fill in the gaps. Because like Dagoth, it's Dagoth, right? And Corvex were like, and we got a J. Did we get a J recently? My memory is shot. It's also been like a really busy week. It's a holiday in the U.S. I'm assuming a lot of my viewers are from the U.S. It's Labor Day. So I'm going to have a nice weekend. I've got my in-laws coming into town. So that'll be fun. It's my sibling in-law, not parents-in-law. So it'll be a fun weekend, but I'm just kind of just tired, Sorry. Most of their tech comes from scavenged orc and stuff, so it comes from the same source as the Tenno. Yeah. So a lot of it is going to be Tenno, similar to the Tenno, just because it's Oregon. Yeah, you're right. There's a theory that the Unum is a Tenno that transfers into the Orcan Tower. Jade is the J. You're right. Thank you, Ninja. I feel like Ninja is always like filling in the gaps of like what I'm saying. On these streams. Theories that the Unum is a Tenno that transfers into the tower. That could be the Unum. Just clearly. Sorry, let me just finish the details on this page, and then I can keep talking. Breathing machine, breathing tubes. That's very interesting because as far as I know, like we don't really see anything like this. The Ostrons have no trouble breathing. The one thing to that is that the working on the tower exposes you to gold dust in the lungs, and they call it gilded lung, which is similar to like black coal or black lung from like coal miners. It's just really funny that it's gold particles, because that's the Oregon. But yeah, so they wear masks. That's why they have this culture of making masks, and like Nakak sells masks. But the masks are originally to protect their nose and lungs from the gold dust. And then it developed into an artistic tradition. But this is breathing machine and breathing tubes, and we don't, as far as we know, they don't have it or need anything like that. Maybe this is a diver. I don't think so. No, this is not a diver, or at least it didn't say so. Modular helmets for shape variation. Okay, just for shape variation. Yeah, just like little modular helmets. Protections. It's guarding the legs against something. Orkin Lucky Charm, just broken from a piece. Too hard to transform and too heavy to have a lot. So, this golden piece, this something that this Ostron person has, is a piece of something Orkin, and it was too heavy to... whatever it was too big and heavy to take the whole thing, and they just took part of it, and they keep it as a lucky charm, as just some fragment, as some Orkin thing, which is cool. That, I mean, I do think that conforms well to what we know about the Ostrons, and I made this note in my most recent lore video, which was a long time ago. About the Orkin, in the section at the end where I sort of talked about how other factions view the Orkin, the Ostrons are in this very interesting position because we now have a very low view of the Orkin as an audience, of course. But the and so that is reflected in a lot of the in-game lore. But the Ostrons, they actually have a pretty high view of the Orkin, which is interesting because we see them as like an allied group, and so in many ways we would assume that they would share our sensibilities. But they, but they live, in the shadow of the tower. They get all of their sustenance and even like guidance. They get like actual wisdom from the tower, which is an Orkin thing, or was an Orkin thing. Again, we don't have information on what the Unum is. Even though Grandmother has like a story about the Ostrons like or the Orkin torturing some Ostrons, and so it appears that, which illustrates that the Ostrons have been around since the time of the Orkin, which is important information. But also that like the Ostrons were directly oppressed, as was everyone, by the Orkin, and yet they it's not just the Unum. They have these things for Orkin souls. Nakak mentions this a couple of times. And this guy's carrying around like a piece of Orkin technology as a good luck charm. It says Orkin Lucky Charm, is what it says, and they just the most explicit thing we get from this is something that the note that Shig leaves behind. He was the Ostron who was killed in the Glassmaker, and he said, his note said, "Lived too long in the shadow of the Unum. I had come to believe that all things Orokin were good as the Unum is good. Not so. And he was talking about Nihil, who was an Orokin, and, Shig was involved with him and ultimately was killed by him. And he was saying, like, I had to, like, realize that not all Orokin were good, even though I've lived my life being sustained by Orokin goodness, as people in Cetus do. And so it's I think it's one of the more interesting things, and like if they really wanted to be super nuanced about it, they could like dive into this. And you know what? Maybe we'll see that with Kome and the Five Fates. But just like the interesting, it is interesting that the Ostrons revere the Orokin. They revere the Unum, and so they, by extension, they hold the Orokin in high regard, and how much of a contrast that is from pretty much every other faction that we know of besides the Corpus, and probably the Grineer. The Grineer probably hate the Orokin. We actually don't have a lot of information on that, but I would say that we have hints that the Orokin do not like the Grineer. And we know that the Corpus do like the Orokin. Sorry, the Grineer don't like the Orokin, is what I meant to say. But most factions, including the Tenno and us as the audience, really dislike the Orokin, and for good reason. And so it's just, I think it's very interesting that the Ostrons do not. Ooh. Canadian here. Labor Day's on Monday. That's interesting because Labor Day for us is also on Monday in the U.S. It's funny that I guess we share that holiday because like your Thanksgiving and I'm pretty sure like your equivalent of like Veterans Day, which I don't are on different days from us. So. That's funny that the Labor Day is the same. Some parts of Earth's atmosphere are toxic, so maybe the breathing tubes has something to do with that at one point. Yeah, that's possible. It's possible. Earth's... I wonder... Earth had a toxic atmosphere at the time that, like, Sylvana was on there during the Old War. I would assume that it's been cleared up. Because, well, first of all, it would be weird for parts of the atmosphere to be toxic and parts of it that aren't. I mean, that's not really how atmospheres work. And there, like I said, there are villages elsewhere. It's not just Earth. It's not just Cetus. And, the planet is... I think we've talked about this on these streams a long time ago, actually. But yeah, a lot of Earth is uninhabitable, but I don't think the atmosphere is still toxic. We did talk about this before, didn't we? Shit. Till called the Sentients Liberators. Yes, that is actually what I'm referring to when I say that I think that the Grineer dislike the Orokin, because I'm pretty sure that's the only indication we ever get. Is Till, who is not necessarily representative of all Grineer, just to, we don't know. But yeah, he said that the Sentients freed us, the Grineer, from Orokin servitude, which that is in a sense true. So. If that is sort of like the common view of the Orokin by the Grineer, then yeah, the Grineer would dislike the Orokin, and they'd have very good reason to. Possibly more than any other faction. I mean, the Orokin were of course extremely oppressive, but they created the Grineer, and they created them in a bad way. So. That's tangent, but yeah, I think based on that one dialogue line from Till, I would say that it is likely that the Grineer do not like the Orokin. Cephalon fragments mention the toxic affirm. Yeah, we did talk about this. Yeah. Sadus is the last remnants of the vain faith. I would actually say... Yeah, I mean, that's... I would say that the Corpus do a good job of keeping the vain faith alive. They've got, of course, a different version of it. They've incorporated profit into their religion. Hey, Danny, good to see you. But the Corpus, I think very much. I think their religion is descended from the Orokin religion, the vain faith, worshipping the Orokin and worshipping the void. But yeah, the Ostrons, I wouldn't even know if it's like the vain faith, or if it's just their own traditions that have sprung up like organically. I think, we don't know that. Alright, moving past, we got like some sketches of essentially the same sketch, it's just different versions of the clothes, but they've got like the tool over the back, and but this is the same sketch, it's just changing up the clothes and the hat and the gear. We just got some nice sketches of Ostrons. So this is interesting. This is good to note. There's actually an Excalibur for scale here, and I think it should come across on the video. And it's significantly taller than the Ostron, which is interesting to know. Because I think I'm trying to remember if the Ostrons are like much bigger or much smaller. I seem to remember that there was like someone making something out of the size in game of the Ostrons, but I would take this to be more canon than that, because not everything in the game I would say lines up. Like that's not. I don't think that's as much of a priority when they're putting stuff into the game. Is like, do the sizes line up? So I would take this to be like the canon height of Ostrons. Is about just under the shoulder height of a Warframe. Oh, hey, Phenomenist. Yeah. Well, yeah. Last week we started late. But, the normal streams start at 7. Which means that we are almost at the end of this one, unfortunately. Anyway, so you got some... These are like... By the way, this one is like armored. There's like... Oh, this is weird. There's like a full set of armor for this Ostron. Like, we don't see anything like this in the game. And then we just see, people carrying backpacks... carrying, loads of grain or something. It's interesting that the Ostrons don't really use the scales. It's interesting the Ostrons don't really use firearms or like guns. Despite the fact that they would have access to them, given that they're like a trading colony. Warframes be big boys. Yep, that's true. Are Warframes bigger or Ostrons small? I would assume that Warframes are slightly larger than like average humans. But like, also, what is an average human in Warframe? Because like the Orokin are not average humans. And yeah, like what would be the average human height? Like maybe the Drifter? Maybe you'd say the Drifter is probably like the closest you can get to like normal human. I mean, I would imagine that the Ostrons are human, but you could also see, they've got... I've heard people be like, oh, they're like devolved humans, or they're not they're like a different subspecies because they have they have a specific look, but I mean that could, I don't necessarily think so, but yeah, Drifter, or I guess like the operatives, like the Syndicate and Tenno operatives, like might be in like what you would call like an average human. So I guess you'd try to see how a Warframe compares to that. Although, like I just said, sizes in game are not necessarily canon from my point of view. Alright, Ostron workers. Now, these are the ones that work on the tower. They work with the flesh. So, of course, remember that the Tower of the Unum, like all... a quick Google search says that Excalibur is 6 feet, but it's just someone commenting on the forum. That's the, that's the downfall. A lot of the information is just, people spouting off, I think. Plus these days you like Google something and like Google puts like an AI summary on it, but like it pulls from random stuff, so it's like not even useful. And even the Warframe wiki in terms of like lore is hit or miss, in my opinion. Because people just write stuff, and you're like, wait, where does this come from? So, yeah, it's tough to say. Corpus techs are like a head taller than a Warframe. Yeah, but it's also like maybe like you don't know how much of that is like part of the suit. I think. I would say. The people for scale. Okay. Yeah, I was like, what scale? Anyway. So yeah, the Tower of the Unum, like all or most Orokin buildings, is actually made of flesh, which is funny and weird and gross and interesting. And they grow their buildings. And so the Ostrons, with the consent of the Unum, harvest parts of the Unum for, some of it's for food, some of it is for like medicine, some of it's for other uses. The Unum is very big and is very bountiful. But yeah, they have to, so this guy has 2 giant cleavers, which is hard as hell. And then they've got these are roughly the same photo. This like drill or auger. All 3 of these have like this thing here, which I don't know if this is like a finger or something. It looks like it's cut off from whatever's on the back. Because there's like a stump and then there's the part on the ground, but I don't know. I don't fully know what's going on here. Norg here, Fibonacci, Mr. Fibonacci. Just more. This is like Ostron without clothes and Ostron with clothes. I don't know what these. A lot of them have this. I don't know what these like things are on the front. These like big, like sort of bulbous cloth dangly bits. Like I don't know what the deal is with those or why they all wear them. I just put my operator's Nord mask without the hood. This is the photo of Konzu, Saya, and Anko. I think this might be the only picture the only anything we ever have of Anko's face, because he wears the mask when you see him. But this is the picture that's like part of like Saya's vigil. This is like a Solaris worker, right? This must be from like the earlier things of when they needed a breathing apparatus. But this has got like a like a plastic visor and like a breathing mask and some weird thing like mounted on the fist here and like a claw on the other hand. This really looks like a Solaris. You can tell they reused the parts of this. This looks like it eventually became the Sino Quills armor, I think, especially the especially the helmet. This is a Dax outfit. So Teshin is existed long before Cetus came around. So obviously the outfit is older than Cetus. But I wonder if this is like an outfit that the Ostrons made to resemble a Dax, and if so, why? That's very interesting. But yeah, this is like the helmet and like the parts coming from the waist and the thighs, like the big, like the baggy. It's just a Dax outfit. All right, so so this is like the Plains of Eidolon. The section is called Cetus, but it involves the Plains of Eidolon and also the Grineer. This is there's still a lot of this section. So this looks like the Grineer page. So you can tell from the last part that this is a Thumper. I think these are different designs of the Thumper before we landed on this. They look nothing like this. So here you've got like thin, spindly legs with like a giant like Thumper apparatus that sticks out of it. This one, it looks like there's like rockets mounted. This one I'm not entirely sure of, because the rockets are driving it down, which like I guess, and then this one, I don't know why they needed this. Like I don't know what the Thumpers. I don't know why they have like this big jumping tank, honestly. Like, there's no reason for it. So I don't know what they're like. They're like, we need this to do X. I have no idea what X is, right? And now, like, you know, it thumps against the ground in order to jump, and it also has like this like destabilizing shockwave thingy. But why? It's just one of the weirdest vehicles, I think. The Ostrons place emphasis on melee weapons, so maybe there was supposed to be a pseudo Dax guard at one point. That's interesting. That is an interesting thought. Yeah, like the guards of Cetus would style themselves after Dax. It would continue to play into the fact that they're like trying to continue the Orican culture, you know, in a sense. Sick motor stroller. My baby son would love this. Are you talking about this? Because this is like a. This looks like a logging or a mining. I think it's a mining thing. There's like a version. They've got a few like drilling apparatuses out on the plains. This looks like a logging thing though. You know. But yeah, it's hard to say. It's a Metal Gear reference. A tank doesn't need bigger guns; it needs legs. By the way, isn't it really funny that like in 1999 there's just gonna be like a normal tank? I mean, it shoots like chemical gas, but it's just really funny when like the tank comes out and you're like, oh, this is like weirdly normal. Just a real side note. So this is a tent. This is the Grineer command tent. Like they've got different Grineer tents out there on the plains of Eidolon in their various encampments. Weirdly, the radios you used to contact Konzu to take bounties out on the field, which were like it was like a later edition of the plains. You used to have to go all the way back to Cetus in order to get a new bounty, and then they changed that with Fortuna, so they went back and added it to the Plains of Eidolon, and they just put these tents all over the place where you could just call Konzu on the radio, but the tent and the radio are Grineer. So you're like, so like, what's going on there? So these are variations of the Bull Core. So we actually went through this with in the Grineer section. If I don't find this in like 10 seconds. Here we go. We found it. So we actually looked at the Bull Core. This is like the detailed cutaway diagram of the inner workings, and then like the long Bull Core design. Whoops. So it looks like these were some other versions of the Bull Core, and except for this one, they obviously look nothing alike. In fact, this one ends up looking like the Condor. And maybe this one too. This one also has like the long Bull Core shape. This one's got like racks, I guess, like maybe for carrying people. Yeah, anyway. Gas tank, that doesn't sound sus at all. I bet these are... Well, okay, hold on. I was gonna say, I think this is supposed to be like the resource vault. You know how like you have the big vaults on the Plains of Eidolon in the Grineer camps that you have to break open to get to the stuff? I was gonna say that's what this is, but these actually just look like generators. So maybe these are just generators, especially given the Grineer to scale here. By the way, these look like... I think this whole page, and maybe these two, look like Sean Bigham's work. He does a lot of the concept art. In my mind, I always imagine that I'm hacking the Grineer's radio and using it for my own thing. Yeah, I think that is maybe what they're trying to say. Yeah, I think Danny is. I think that's the likely answer. It's just funny to me because there's no like indication or anything. So you know what's really interesting along that line is in Veilbreaker, in both the quest and then in like the third in the Prison Break mission, which is just a copy paste of the quest. When you start the mission, you have Call with this crashed ship, and it's very clear if you take a minute and observe like the starting location, it's very clear that he's cannibalized bits of the electronics from this crashed Grineer ship and made himself a radio, and that's how he gets Kaylee's attention. Which is... And they don't really like, they don't call attention to this or anything like that. You have to like stop and like look around and explore, but it's he's literally like cobbled together a working radio. It's and it works, and it's really fascinating. Call is certainly like a specimen. So it looks like all of these are like sort of contiguous. This is like we're looking at some stuff of Cetus, and we're going to continue to look at stuff from like the town. So I think this is a good stopping point. It is we're at like the 2-hour mark. Well, we're at the 2-hour mark from when the stream should have started. I started like 5 minutes late. But there's not really a good stopping point, in the near future. So I think what we'll do again... Actually, you know what? Let me just You know, I don't want to have to keep starting in like the middle of sections. I just don't think that is like great. So I'm actually going to go on a little longer. And like I said, I did start the stream late. So I'm actually going to continue the stream a bit more, and we're just going to finish up the Cetus section. And, I'll try to not take too long with this. And that way we will have, like, the whole Fortuna section, and that'll probably be the whole next stream. So, we're just going to keep going. We're going to finish off the Cetus section. Call smart, yep. But Call is very smart for a Grineer, for sure. So, here we've got... So this is, like... I think this is... a part of... I think this is like the big Orican thing in the center of Cetus. I think that this is like an early design that didn't end up working out. But remember that Cetus has like that pointy Orican building in the center of it. And it looks like they wanted to use that as like a hot air balloon landing zone. With like balconies and stuff like that. And then I guess they stopped doing that because... Yeah. This is very cool, but yeah, I don't think it would... it doesn't work with how the tower ends up looking, or how that building ends up looking, and also, it's a little weird to be, like, sending hot air balloons into, like, the very center of town. Like, especially when they're full of, like, rotting meat and stuff like that. Not rotting, but... fresh meat and like huge chunks of it. You wouldn't necessarily want that coming into like the center of town. You'd want to process that on the outskirts, which is where they do it. So I guess they figured maybe they came to the same conclusion because they ended up not doing this. But these are cool concepts. Here down on the bottom we just got some like shacks. It looks like there's like a rough progression of like getting destroyed. I mean, even from the start, they don't look great. Maybe they're all supposed to be in like stages of disrepair, but like this one and this one and this one are like, this one. These last four are like pretty terrible. Like there's like broken down, and this one's like burnt out and like got no roof. So, but even these are like not great. Anyway, so these are just shacks that are just in a bad way. And here we've got like a hot air balloon. So it's funny because there's not really a space for the people to be in. And, if you've done the new war, there is the section, as you know, where you pilot one of these hot air balloons. I don't think that's too big of a spoiler. It doesn't really give away anything. But when they have you pilot the hot air balloon, there is like a basket you stand in here. But, this design, there's like not... Maybe if the humans are like in the lower part of the balloon here? Because there's like... I mean, the shape of these balloons is also like really weird. Like, why are they like this? And not like a balloon filled with gas is going to have a pretty regular shape. So, I don't know. Maybe those are supposed to be destroyed. Ostron has it on the planes. Yeah, maybe. Well, I'm off. All right, see you, Sith. Yeah, like we're continuing to go on late, so I understand if you have to take off. See you and good night. Yeah, good night. But yeah, so on this diagram, it doesn't look, it doesn't look like there's like a person in this, and so I wonder how this thing is supposed to steer. If it does it automatically or what? Rope release mechanism. This is supposed to be like zoomed in on one of these devices on the edge. Clamp detail. So these are clamps. Ropes hang down, and then they clamp onto the meat. This is just a piece of meat. Drill slide. Oh, wow. So So these clamps, which are like small in this and get blown up here, they've got drill bits on the edges, and they drill in to really clamp and hold on to the meat. That's fascinating. Lower part rotates on circular rail. Okay, so the reason why there's actually two rings here is the top ring is connected to the balloon, and the bottom ring is connected. Well, is got these clamps hanging to get to the meat, and then the rings, they swivel around each other so that this lower part can rotate freely. So that's just interesting. Oh, okay, I was wrong. So they just don't have it in here, but this hanging piece, this is a seat, and so here you have a person sitting in it. And then here's like a blown up version of the empty seat. Huh. Oh, okay. So yeah, there's this chair hanging down, and it's like there's no like safety rail or anything. It's just like a metal thing that hangs down, and you sit in it, and it's got its own circular loop, so it can also swivel, and it's mounted on the edge of this larger lower ring, and the lower ring, turns independently of the balloon, but this part can also swivel, so I guess you can like turn around and look at the back, and then I think this isn't labeled or pointed out or anything, but I think there's a fan. It just looks like a fan or a propeller on the back as the propulsion to push this thing, forward. And obviously, if this person sitting here, I would assume, has controls. It looks like there are controls here. They're not like labeled or anything, but it looks like there's like arm things that you would move, and those probably would adjust the direction of the propulsion and be able to raise and lower the height by manipulating the balloon, either by letting out air, or I guess I mean, if it is a hot air balloon, where's like the heat source, to heat up the air? I'm just now noticing that. All right, so continuing on, we've got, this is the big Oracle door. And then I assume this is like a side view of something, some Oracle thing. But yeah, you've got just a couple of, 3 different versions of the door. Here you've got the masks that Nakak sells, the Grenier, Volt, Trinity, Excalibur, Mag. And remember that the Ostrons have as I said earlier, they have a tradition of making artistic masks, but it comes from the practical necessity of needing masks to take care of their, to protect them while they're working on the tower. And here you have the toy Gracata and the toy Skana that the kids use. This whole page, I think, is Sean Bigham's work. Here you've got like a market stall with like the tent and the lanterns and the stone benches. This is maybe not so much a market as much as it is like a kitchen and like a dining area, because you got the tables right here, and then you have the cooked stuff, meat hanging here, smoking, and roasting and getting eaten. You have some miscellaneous stuff, flanks of meat here, pots and pans, and piles of like salt or spices, utensils, bits of like, these are like fish parts. So there's a fish head, like a fish jaw, and a fish tail, more fish parts. This looks like a diagram of like the oven or something. And then you've got these hanging lanterns. It's a food court. Yeah, it does look like a food court. Like they cook the food in the center and then the tables all around. You have to remember that the Ostrons, are like a communal society. So I think that even though they're like capitalistic in the sense that they make stuff and then they sell it to off-worlders, I think they have like a different. I'm like gleaning this from, from the info we have. I think what they do is they have like two different systems where they'll like sell stuff to off-worlders and they have like their own sort of market economy that way. But among themselves, to other Ostrons, it's like basically shared, communal. Everything is free, and they even like look down on. The Shig, the Ostron that I mentioned earlier, who was in the Nightwave Glassmaker series, his deal, like he was doing stuff on his own without like without like filling in the rest of the Ostrons and pocketing the profits for himself, and then he ended up getting killed for it. But like one of his friends found out and was like, "What are you doing? Like this is completely antithetical to our way of life that you would, not be sharing." So yeah, like at first I was like, "Oh, this is like where they sell the food to each other to eat it," but like I don't think that they do that. I think they just cook food for everybody. Just some pieces of Orkin like wall. And you have like the polished and finished outside, and then the other side is like with all the meat exposed. So here you've got the stand, and this is where they receive the meat. So you actually see this happen when you first, actually not even when you first visit Cetus. I think this either happens every time you visit Cetus, or maybe it just happens a lot. But there's like a cutscene that plays out where there's where like a slab of meat it's already mounted in this. In the opening cutscene, you see it being lowered down, and then any time you visit Cetus, it's already in this thing, and it's a giant slab of meat, much bigger than a person. There's a person for scale here, and this is like a 2-story structure. 3-story, because you can stand up here. So this is like a 3-story structure, and you lower a giant slab of meat, and it gets held in this golden arch like support, and then they use these giant hooks, these like flensing hooks, to cut out the bits that they need, or they separate it. They cut like the different cuts out, and to process it, and then it looks like. Oh, okay, that's why it's on the shoreline. So it looks like when they're done and they've taken the important bits, so there's like a big arrow pointing down. Let me see. Yeah, I think it comes across on the video. There's a big arrow pointing down to indicate that this slab of meat is getting lowered. But then there's an arrow swiveling over, so I think when they're done cutting out, there's no written notes on this, but I think when they're done cutting out the bits that they need, and they've basically extracted everything from this meat slab, then the thing just flips and swivels backwards, and then the what's left of this meat slab just slides into the ocean, like it gets dumped out directly into the water, and that's what's pictured here. It like tilts backwards and just falls. So that's that's an ingenious setup there. I think that's really cool. Very smart of the Ostrons, and very smart of DE for thinking it up. I'm just flipping through. We've got like 3 or 4 more pages of this. So, here we've got some. Ooh, what? This is super weird. So yes, we've got some pictures of the Unum Tower. And as you can see, the tower is actually, it extends quite a far bit into the earth. And there's almost as much of it underground as there is above ground. Or in this version, there's actually slightly more of it underground. And we especially because there's different versions of the tower. We don't know what's quote unquote canon and what isn't. but there's... So this one has some notes, which I think are... the Unum is absolutely gigantic. Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so there's some notes on this that are, like, very, very weird and interesting to me. So, this is loading cranes, and it's talking about these two things on either side of the tower that's, like, more mounted on the land. These are labeled loading cranes. There's something that says town. This is labeled town, and is in the very center in the middle of this. It just says town. And then here it says Oregon shipping containers, and it's referring to these... I don't know, I don't think it comes across very well, but there's, like, a series of containers that are, like, hanging down from here on each side, and they're called Oregon shipping containers. And then here, you have these two structures here that are, like, subterranean, embedded in the earth, and they are labeled, for some reason, super magnets. Super magnets. I have no idea what that means or what purpose it serves, but it's like, what? It's got to be 15, 20 kilometers from below ground to top. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is crazy big. It's like, I mean, I think it's like comparable probably, you know, based on like cutscenes and I'm just like going off of like my feelings. It looks like it's like roughly comparable to like a modern skyscraper that we have. It's probably a lot thicker like around maybe, but like you could see something of these dimensions being built, like height wise, like whatever, it's fine. But it's also extending as far into the ground, and it's like one big cohesive thing. And that's like the weird part. It had a Murex parked on top of it during the New War. Yeah. Oh yeah, it did have a Murex, so that you know, if you use the size of the Murex, you can sort of get a picture of the scale. Also, by the way, very impressive that it was like able to sustain that amount of weight. I mean, you could be like, oh, the Murex was, you know, the Murex is powered. It had a Murex parked on top. You know what? You're right. Because the Murexes are absolutely massive. They're like kilometers long. So, yeah. Oh yeah, that's like reframing my perspective of the cutscenes, because I'm thinking about like the one cutscene at the start of the New War when the Murex crashes and you like the kid looks up, and I'm just like, and from that like look up, I'm like, okay, that's like roughly the size of a modern skyscraper, but I think it's like a perspective thing because the top part at least, because it has like the proportions of a modern skyscraper, but the then it seems like it's the same, but the dimensions are completely different in all directions. So it's a much bigger around, but also much taller. I think you're right, Ninja. I think this is like crazy huge. Was the Unum that we were able to get on top of during the New War when the Deacons were in Cetus? Yes. So the tower of the Unum is like the big tower that's in Cetus, that's like next to Cetus. It's in the water, and then you use a hot air balloon to get from Cetus to like, I don't know, midway up the tower or something like that. I would say, I guess, spoilers for the New War, but again, I don't think there's big story spoilers in saying that the Unum Tower plays a role in the New War. I I do need to start being more like cognizant of, I would say, spoiler warnings, especially if I stream regularly. My plan, which is probably contingent on me getting better internet, so who knows when that'll happen. But I would like to stream regularly after we finish this art book, where I talk about. I mean, I'm envisioning just playing Warframe and getting my Netra cells done and stuff like that, and then talking about lore. But I would like to do that on a regular basis, but I think it will depend on some factors outside of my control. So yeah, we'll see that. We'll see that if whatever that happens in the future. But as always, you can join the Discord to the Oricon Archives Discord just to keep up to date on what I have in store. The link is in the video description. There's 5 people watching right now. Yeah, that's true. I'm not super paying attention to the viewer count. So I mean, I'm looking now. But yeah, so yeah, that's true. But yeah, no. So yeah, the Unum is absolutely massive. And it looks like it was maybe originally intended, possibly by the Oricon, to be some sort of transport relay, because it's got loading cranes and shipping containers. So maybe this is supposed to maybe an Oricon ship is supposed to park on top, get loaded up, and then fly off into space. Maybe. But and also the super magnets. Why are there super magnets, and what do they do? What is this? And it's these things that are embedded in the ground, and they don't appear in the other photos. So what are they? What is it for? Doing God's work with the deep lore. Yeah. The lore sustains me. The lore sustains me too. There's so much to talk about, and there continues to be lore hidden in this. We can talk about what the Unum's tower was supposed to be doing with these shipping containers and super magnets. Maybe they're a foundation. Yeah, that's sort of what I think. Because it looks like they're anchoring the tower in place, and you would need something like that for if for something as massive as we've been talking about how massive this tower is. You would really want to make sure that it's firmly in place. But wouldn't just putting it in the ground like this work? It's burying it as deep as it is. I don't know what the super magnets are doing, and what are the super magnets attached to that they're such a firm grip? Otherwise, they're just parts on the end of the tower. I don't know if that's. Oricon shipping lane contains the consciousness of a multiversal being that sees the future. Right? I mean, there's so much interesting lore about the Cetus and the tower and the Unum, because it's was the Unum always part of the tower? Is she separate somehow? In everything, it's she's identified with the tower. But if this is some entity, it might be different from the tower. Maybe it's a cephalon, maybe it's a Tenno consciousness or something. I forgot to come back to talk about that point earlier. Maybe it's just the neural sentry, maybe. I don't know. Whatever, or something that's none of those things. Whatever the Unum is, it might not be inextricable from the tower. Maybe it came from somewhere else and arrived at the tower and got integrated with it. So there's so much that we don't know, and maybe we'll get some answers with the new update. But yeah, if it's just an integral part of the tower, then it's oh yeah, this is our transportation hub, and it also has this What did you say? A multiversal being that sees the future? Like, yeah, we use that for shipping. It's a very funny little detail there. More lore in 24. Also, if the tower were destroyed, would Unum also die? Yeah, so, like, we don't know. It's just more questions. All right. So this I think is the building in the center of Cetus, or a version of it. It doesn't look like this now. It doesn't have like this blocky bit on top. This is the gate, open, with like a person for scale in the very middle, and this is just the same photo. So this is the bridge. And to me, it looks like that this was. Yeah, to me, it looks like this was based on like Roman aqueducts. The Romans built these all over Europe, and the Oricon, of course, draw on a lot of like Roman aesthetic and mythology, and just like use the Romans as a big like metaphor. Like there's so many comparisons with like the Roman Empire, so it would make sense for DE to use like a Roman structure like the aqueducts to as the inspiration for these bridges that come out on either side of the tower. And then we also see similar things like this in on the Cambion Drift. There's like these raised highways that are like in ruins, but they kind of look like that. And there's even a part in Fortuna, in one of the underground caves, there's like an Oregon road that's like ruined. That's like, overgrown by fungus and stuff like that. The Oregon would 100% do something like that. You're right, they would. They used like enslaved human consciousnesses for like, teaching school children and stuff like that. I guess you'd want a person to do that. So, but like, it's like that like Rick and Morty thing where he makes like a sentient robot to butter his toast, and it's like, what is my purpose? He's like, you serve butter. It's like, that's totally something the Orcan would do. What if the Unum was like you suggested earlier, possibly something like a cephalon, and the tower is her prison, and they use it for shipping as a sort of degradation of her worth? I mean, yeah, like she certainly, if that was her original intent, she's very much outgrown that. I think, and I would say that it seems to me that her tower is not a prison now, especially because the Orcan like aren't around or anything. We don't have too much info on the Unum, but I would feel like she seems to be doing, she's like serving, a purpose. She's helping out the Ostrons. She's got like a whole faction that works for her. Butterbot 4000. The Quills, they do her bidding. If she wanted to be like an active participant in like the universe, which it doesn't super seem like she does, but like she could be extremely effective. And the funny part is that maybe she has been extremely effective for a long time, and so effective that like nobody knows it. Like people know about the Quills as being like shady people who can manipulate time, or not manipulate time, but like that's like the aura that they give off. But like, so people have like a general understanding of like the Quills and the Unum, but like, maybe she's been pulling the strings for 1,000 years. Narratively, I don't think that's true. But, you just think about like the kind of power that she has, especially with like being able to sense different timelines or possibilities or whatever, what have you. Enslaved human consciousness is capable of running through a scenario 600 million times. Yeah, I do think. To me, the Unum seems to be more than like a cephalon. If the Unum just turns out to be a cephalon, I will be like, come on, like what? Why can't all cephalons do this? It's clearly, I think, something more and possibly something metaphysical, especially given the ability she has to stop time, which now we're getting into spoilers. But as has been pointed out, that's probably not probably doesn't mean anything. But yeah, as we've seen, the Unum can actually stop time, at least briefly. So like she's definitely something special. And if she's not, then I'll be disappointed. Luna was just playing the game on creative mode. I mean, exactly. Like, yeah, it's like a real life like undo button. Is like, oh, I saw the timeline. That doesn't work out. We're not going to do that. Or inversely, the Unum is just a master of inception. Yeah, manipulating the timeline. Yeah, no, it's I mean, they say this. During the Profiteaker thing, Little Duck is like, oh, quills don't die. And they're confused because a quill died. But it was like on purpose. And she was like, yeah, like quills don't die. And there's like a bunch of them, and a lot of them get put into dangerous situations. And you think about it, and just and generally speaking, they don't die because they work for the Unum, and she is like, yeah, don't take a step to the left because you'll get hit by a bullet. It's a very powerful thing when you think about it. Okay, so we were talking about this bridge, and there's a bunch of labels here, but they're not lore-wise super interesting. But they are, they're cool. So travertine deck. Travertine is, I believe, a type of marble that the Romans did a lot of. Like, I think a lot of Rome is built out of travertine, but I could be wrong. But it's like a very ornate type of stone. It's got like imagine what this thing looked when it was new. Cellular superstructure webbing, so reinforcing that this is actually flesh, and the outside of it is stone or stone-like, but generally it is like a biological thing. Bone exterior. Okay, so yeah, bone exterior, necrotic blubber. So a lot of the insides and internals of this flesh is blubber. Gangrenish bruising. So you see. So yeah. Even though the outside of it looks like inorganic, looks like stone or some other finished product, the whole thing is biological, as is demonstrated. Like, this isn't dirty. This is bruised. Like, this is a biological thing that's been damaged, and it's cracked open, it's necrotic, and it's bruised. And down on the bottom, these are barnacles. This isn't damage. These are, because remember, this is in the ocean. This is right off the coast, and so it's got barnacles on it. And then this is drain hole. It's got these little drainage holes, and this I think would be like dirt or like stain from the water. I don't think this is like damage. You see there's drain holes at intervals along the sort of the bottom of this, and it's like little dark underneath them, as you would see in a drain hole in like a stone bridge. But yeah, and it says travertine deck, so maybe they paved the top of this with a layer of stone, but I also think it's likely that it's just more. Well, no, because the gold is not going to be biological. They will have added the gold. So yeah, maybe they like this is like 95% biological, including the exterior of this, which is described as bone. And then maybe they added some marble to the top, and then they added these gold things, because I don't think you could imagine that these golden, ornaments were biological. Remember the Zeraman energy and the story of the Mirror Princess? The Unum is probably the princess from the story. Yeah, I know Stellar D said that. He had a video about the Zeraman, and I think he said that the Unum is the princess from the Mirror story. And I suppose I've seen a few other people saying that. I am just gonna not say one way or the other, because it's getting into like the more sort of theoretical stuff, which I will say is just not my forte. I don't especially the stuff with like time and eternalism, and I'm really bad at sort of theory crafting on those points. So I don't really have an opinion about like how the Unum ties into the Mirror Princess. Like, I think it'll be cool, and I hope that when they explain it, they do it in a way that it makes sense to me. And that's really all I will say. In the land of endless sands and time's embrace stands a tower, sacred guardian in its place, silent sentinel of Cetus, ancient and wise, the Unum watches with unblinking eyes. Huh. Alright. So, we got just some more pictures of Cetus. Here's the weapon. These are all like the weapons stall. Or maybe these are tools for, shaping, for cutting into like the flesh. Well, huh. Wait, this is Tizanai stall here. So like this is like a stall of like bladed weapons or something like that. But this is not Tizanai. This is just some dude. But this is like an enclosure, and there's 2 cavats and a bunch of like caged birds. So this is like this is a close up of this, and this is a close up of this. So, but yeah, there's like this is like the animal enclosure here. Here's another shot of Cetus. I would imagine, of course, that this is back in like the earlier sort of concept where Cetus is enclosed in like this crater here, and then the tower's also got a weird shape. This actually looks like the the Weeping Towers on Venus. They've got this sort of pyramid shape or cone shape, whereas of course the Unum Tower is pretty much perfectly cylindrical. I think this like AI poem is thinking that Cetus is in the desert, which it is not. Oh, by the way, I think I saw this thing that like YouTube is now rolling out like AI generated chat recaps. Like if you join a live stream. And it's like, oh, here's what the people were talking about before you got here. I don't think this chat is like active enough to get that, but if anyone ever notices something like that, please send them to me because I feel like they would be interesting, if not hilarious. But yeah, apparently I don't know if like they're only rolling this out on certain channels, and these live streams don't attract too much attention, so if that's the case, we're probably not like eligible for it. But I've seen it on a couple of other like YouTube streams that I've watched, where people will be like, "Hey, I just joined the AI said you were talking about like blah blah blah," which is just a very funny concept to me. Anyway. Some more just village shots here. There's like pots or baskets. This is more like a pot, but these are like baskets. You can actually get like dojo decorations of these, and I think that these ones at least are described as being made out of shells, or maybe like one big shell. I don't think so. More balloon shapes, again with just like the real funky balloon shapes. Like I wonder if like internally these are like several balloons that are, put several like self-contained balloons, and then there's like a larger like final like opening or like covering to make it look like it's all one balloon. because that's the only explanation I could have for like why they're shaped like this. Either that or they're rigid for some reason. And that is the shape that they have because they're rigid. But like you fill a balloon with gas, it's not going to look like this. It's either going to be like a perfect sphere or like an oval of some sort. It's, it's not going to have these weird bulky shapes. And the only way you could have this is if you had like a bunch of random balloons in like random places of different sizes, and then you covered them with like an outer, shell. I mean, which there's like, you could have reasons for doing that. In a way, it's safer because if you lose one of the balloons, you don't lose all the gas, This is like me doing research into airships and zeppelins for like my story. So I'm just like, I'm just looking at this and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Hopefully they'll be as funny as the comments on the archives. Yes. Okay, so I get I get like a bunch of spam comments on my website, on the Orkin Archives website. There is a comments feature which is rarely used. Every now and then there's like an actual comment posted. But like what I do get is a bunch of like bots trying to leave comments to like Viagra websites or gambling websites, and it's just like I just mark this as spam and like move on. But every now and then they're like funny. So if you join the Discord, if you look on the Discord, I actually have a section where I post the spam comments that make me laugh. Someone on Cool Kids stream got it. Yeah, that's actually the one I was watching recently, where Cool Kid was streaming and he was like, and people were sending him the AI or not the transcript, but the AI like recap, the chat recap. Here's some Maprico trees. With Excalibur to scale, so you see these only come up to waist height. These look like they're inspired by like bonsai trees, just because they're not full size trees, of course, but they do like have the shape of them. They look like bonsai trees. I've literally never made that connection until just now, because they always seemed like I guess I just thought they were bushes, but they are trees. But yeah, they're only like waist height, and they're full of Mapricos. So this is actually the last page. Yeah. And wow. Okay. So here, like beginning and end, we've got some nice pictures of like people cutting away bits of the tower. So you see here. They have to like chip through like the hard exterior, and then you just get the flesh, and then you get this like, I don't know what you call it, this like, this webbed structure that sort of supports the flesh. There's definitely a biological term for it, but it's just like the Matrix, I was gonna say extracellular matrix, which is, I guess, what it is on like a much larger scale. But I'm a cell biologist by training, so I'm thinking of like the very small structures that serve this purpose. But I'm gonna go now. Good night. All right. Well, like I said, we're on the last page, so. See ya. Thanks for stopping by. Phenomenist, what links are you talking about? Alright. So, but yeah, so, like, this is a really great, just, it gives you a lot of, like, information on what's going on. So you got this guy drilling, I guess, so they can't, I guess, cut directly into this. they drill a series of holes, and I guess I'm assuming that lets them like sort of knock out chunks of it like this. So this part's cut away of like the outer like bone / stone structure, but there's like dots. There's lines of dots drilled into it, and then you see this guy up here, and he is drilling. So I guess they have to drill, and that also sort of explains the weird shape that the cutout has. But so they drill a series of holes, and that lets them knock this out, and that exposes the flesh, and then this guy uses his giant serrated blade to, I guess, cut out like a strip of the flesh, and then they use these hooks to like pull this out, and then all this blood is coming out and it's pooling. I would assume that they have the tower produces kuva, and but I don't think that this blood is the kuva. I would assume this is something else, because the kuva is precious and the Ostrons do collect it. And so for them to be just treating this as like refuse liquid makes me think that it's probably just blood, not anything special like kuva. I wonder if she feels pain. Yeah, that is an interesting question. Oh, I see. The links from the spam comments. Okay. I wonder if she feels pain. Yeah, that is interesting. I don't think that's ever, to my recollection, and I am very tired, and I have not had the best memory this stream. But to my recollection, I don't actually think that this has ever been addressed. The cetus fragments, which is where I think you get the most information about this process. It says that she tells them where to cut. She tells them where to look, because sometimes there's like hidden like artifacts, inside. And she tells them where to find them so that they can like sell them and make a profit to off-worlders. She tells them like where the nutrient, I think the nutritious part that they eat is just like the general parts of the tower, but she specifically tells them where to cut and where not to cut so that she can heal and grow back over time, so that it's like an endless resource, and she manages it. She is it, but she's like able to plan out and make sure that they don't take too much, they don't expend it, which is very cool. I think it's very interesting and like a unique sort of setup. But in all of that description, I don't think it mentions if not she would feel like the pain of them cutting into her, which is interesting to think about. Like maybe she could turn off if there are pain receptors, which it may or may not make sense for her to have as a design feature. Because, you would, like, a building feeling pain is weird, but you would want it to know if something was was wrong with it, right? But yeah, so if she does have pain sensors of a sort, can she, like, turn them off? Or maybe, because, like, pain in a biological sense hurts because it has to get attention, to get your attention, right? But like a computer has lots of sensors that's like, oh hey, it's getting too hot, or you're using too much memory or anything, and like we don't make those painful to the computer, right? That doesn't. So if you're designing something, I'm rambling. I'm really just rambling at this point, but. Yeah, does the Odin feel pain? Very interesting question, and one that has not been answered. So skipping ahead to this last page, because this is actually the same image. It's just like more forward in time. Like you look at it and like it's the same part of the same thing. But this one, is interesting. It looks like they've cut away they've cut away a good bit more, but it also looks like it looks damaged. I wonder if this is like we know that they use explosives in some cases to like get rid of or to like expose like larger parts rather than this like piecemeal drilling to get to things. Like they use explosions and like explosive charges to more effectively mine, in a sense. So I wonder if that's what they did here, or maybe this is an example of them overusing, because this looks like wrong to me. It looks like there's something wrong with this photo. And I don't know if it's just because it's like exposed flesh and this is just like an instinctual thing, or if they when they were designing this, they're like, oh yeah, the Ostrons have over-mined this, they've disregarded the Unim's instructions, and they've taken too much, and it's like now diseased, I don't know, it seems darker, it seems like this blubber, it almost looks like it's being wasted or something. I don't know. I'm just like I said, I'm just rambling at this point. It is getting late for me. It's not even that late. What am I talking about? I'm just tired. Okay, well, luckily we're basically finished up here. This looks like maybe like a version of the land bridge. This almost looks like it's not like a land bridge, but like a. Oh my god, how do I describe this? There's it's time for everybody to go to bed. Yeah. There's a bridge. I've seen pictures of this bridge in like Germany or something like that, where it's a walled bridge and the top of the wall is at the water line. This is like over a lake. And so the top of the walls on either side of the bridge are at the water line, and so the part of the bridge that you walk on is actually underwater, or it would be if the bridge wasn't there. So that's sort of what this looks like. I'm trying to like interpret this image here at the top, and it looks like this is in the ocean, and there's like walls up here, and then there's like a pathway into the tower here, and this pathway, this causeway, is actually like under sea level, and these like sea walls are keeping this pathway intact. I think that's what this is. I think that's what this looks like to me. And then there's like some balloons here, some blimps here. You've got this landing pad, which is like outside. It's like on the outskirts of town. This is actually in the game. There's a landing pad on the coast, in between Cetus and the tower, and it's where like the Corpus land their ships, and probably more, but the Corpus are the only ones you actually see landing there. And then, it's just a bit of the town at night, and then this is like a very interesting concept of the tower that shows like many bridges. Usually what we see is this one with like one bridge on each side. But this has got the one on each side, and it's also got like a bunch of ones on the other sides, and then like these like tendrils reaching up into the main tower. This is like, must be some early concept or some weird exploration. It's very funky looking, and not what the tower. Maybe this is like a concept of what would happen if it got infested, almost. Because it is sort of looking infested to me, but not really. I think these are still balloons. This isn't a very detailed picture, but I think it's got like the Ostron balloons hanging around, so they're still harvesting it. So it must not be infested, but that's just what it reminds me of. Just got these tendrils. Alright, so that is it. This is... Oh, man. I love this. Next week, we will talk about Fortuna, and I think that will probably take us the full... Oh, my God. This is a big section, actually. Yeah, I think that'll take us the full 2 hours if we're lucky. It'll be like just at that time. So, we got this great shot of like the Venusian landscape. But yeah, that was Cetus, the Tower, the Ostrons, the Plains of Eidolon, the Grineer. We actually didn't even see any parts of the Eidolon in this. It's interesting that they left that out.